Good morning, YouTube. And it is a good morning, especially if your name is chalupa or licorice, because morning time means carrots. That's right, they're not only good for humans, but for dogs too. Normally, I make them sit or perform for their reward, but other times I'm just generous. I require nothing of them. And yeah, I got something I wanted to reveal to you guys. Ta-da! My hair has been cut. It has been shortened. I look great. I feel great. 20 pounds lighter. That's why I did so many pull-ups, I guess. Um, Today is going to be a fun day. Actually, it's not just one day, okay? We're going to be going over 4 days, and I'm going to make a stool. This stool is for the purpose of sitting on to play guitar. I wanted it to be custom to my height, which is short, and I wanted it to be right for all the positioning requirements of when I'm playing my guitar and putting my foot up on the stool. So anyway, you'll see that at the end, but boy, I had so much fun. From start to finish, I was only frustrated like 2 times maybe. But other than that, I was just having so much fun, and I learned a lot. Here you can see this is the seat top. This is, where I'll be sitting. And I'm gluing up 2 boards together after planing the edges to make them nice and flat so they'll get a good glue bondage together. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I learned from this project is about planning and design. I didn't really pursue any planning or designing for this stool at all. In my head, I was like, I kind of want it to be like this, just like that. I wanted it to be kind of like that. And as I put things together, I was like, that's kind of ugly. Those those are like the apron pieces, and I'm ripping them in half so that they'll be thinner. Because when they were thick, I was like, it doesn't look that good. But that's not the only time this kind of thing happened. I was like, oh, what material am I going to use for the legs? I didn't even plan for the legs. Are they going to have a shape? Oh, that looks better. Everything is made out of pine. And what's more is that, okay, those are going to be little stretchers. I didn't do it exactly like that. But, oh, that was just one day. That was day 1. This is day 2. I'm sharpening my blade for the plane to get ready because we got a lot of work to do. In the official test, that's right, you gotta make sure they can shave your hair. My arm hair isn't long enough, so that's why I use my leg. But it passes the test. And I've got Chalupa out here. He's watching me, observing me working hard. And hard work it is. You want to go diagonally to take down a lot, like the high spots, really quickly. I go diagonal one way and then diagonal the other way. And let me tell you, YouTube, okay, it's Texas here where I live, and summertime is the season. And it was a lot of planing in the heat. It was like 95 degrees. And it just didn't end. But eventually you do end, and it's pretty nice. It's nice and flat, and so I cut it down to length, rough length. A lot of the dimensions I was going for was just kind of rough at first, and as I started to refine things, I paid more careful attention. I was having a lot of fun with this, and this is why I normally fast forward the videos. Yeah, so it was just so enjoyable for me, spending several hours just planing things down with a oiled sole for my hand plane and a freshly sharpened blade. Man, I was making progress, and I set up this little jig for putting the board in too. That little cutout on the plywood, and then just a stopping piece of plywood on the end. And it was really easy. It held the wood perfectly, didn't shake around a ton. This YouTube, if you have seen the last video I posted about preparing the goods, I did not follow my own advice, and even though it looks nice as it is, the frame and the legs, they were not really prepared like in order to do joinery. They weren't square or perfectly flat or whatever, and that was going to come to bite me a little bit when I was assembling it. This was the time that I was Now cutting all the pieces to length. I could have done this a little bit better in order, maybe just using a stop block to get consistent length cuts, because I had to adjust it later on. But the worst, yeah, this is the worst part of the entire build, which is not even bad, but connecting the pieces, the legs, to those apron stretcher pieces. I'm not entirely sure what they're called, but I'm pretty sure it's called the apron. I just used screws, and screws into end grain is not the best. I didn't even glue it. I was making those big holes to put dowels in to cover up the screws, which I think looked well. But look, you can see it's just nothing. It wasn't super square. It was kind of wobbly. In the end, it's okay. You can just force it back into square if you want to, but it really has an easy time pulling the screws out of the end grain if you are persistent and you want them to come out. So it was a little wobbly, but you know what? It was solid day's progress. Tiny bit of wobble with the legs. So that was day 2. Day 3 started off sipping some tea and imagining what did I want this stool to look like. I wanted to add in those stretchers that just kind of held them in place. But I was cutting down these thin pieces, and I made a lot of mistakes, and just I needed to measure twice. I measured once and ended up cutting a lot more than twice. I finally ended up on this design. That's why I say the biggest learning experience for me was to plan ahead. What kind of joinery do I want to do? This was not the original plan, but I'm like, okay, it works, and I'm satisfied with it in the end, but I wish I would have thought about it earlier on. Anyway, it's just a lot of glue. Glue is fun because it gets all over your fingers and it's all sticky and makes a mess. Some people don't feel that way. Okay, now dowels. I glued them in, and then I cut the other half, and I used that cutoff to do the second half of the dowel holes. So in reality, instead of 16, I did 8 dowels. Anyway, I was just being frugal. And then there was a lot of hand sanding, which is fun. It's cool. Oh, I cut myself with my chisel. I was paring down the dowel cutoff so it could be flush. But you know what? You just wash 20 seconds with warm water and soap. And you put a little Band-Aid on that guy. Yep. Nice and nice. Ready to get back to work. Okay, here's me trying to cut off the thinnest piece of the leg so that it wouldn't wobble anymore. And I really thought I was going to do it. It was very thin, but then it broke in half. Well, that's okay. You just got to be persistent and persevere. Get it to the bottom. And that got rid of all the wobble. So, oh, and you'll notice that I only put one stretcher lengthwise. That was plenty enough for me. And here comes the stain. When you stain pine, it gets pretty splotchy if you don't prepare it with some primer type deal. I didn't have that though, so I thought this looked good enough. The dowels look cool, the end grain contrast. That was the end of day 3. Now day 4. That's right, ladies, we gotta work on the seat. And I finally decided I was going to have a curved shape. So I went with the electric hand plane. I just went to town. Okay, I'm just getting in that rough shape for a curve. I wanted it generally half an inch thick in the middle, and then I would figure out the dimensions later on. I didn't plan for it. Anyway, using the hand plane was so much fun. It took me quite some time. And look at all those shavings. If any of you guys has a hamster and you need some extra shavings, let me know, because I'll give you some. I have them. And little by little, it was just getting more smooth. It was fun to see it transform before your eyes. Eventually, I needed to use a different tool to follow the contour of the curve. That is my spoke shave. Spoke shave is not really supposed to be used in this application, but it worked, so I guess why not? Why not use it in this application? It was a lot of fun, and it took a while to get all the little tiny marks out from the hand plane or even the spoke shave itself. If you go too deep, it's going to make a nasty little cut that you have to work to smooth out. And afterwards is sanding. Spent quite some time hand sanding. 80 grit, and then like 120, and then 220, something along those lines. Just took it up to 220. And it was pretty smooth. If you would have felt it, you would have said, that's pretty smooth. And I would agree with you. And then we just cut it to final width. See, there was kind of that little imperfection at the top, and so I wanted to cut that out. So we rip it to final width at the table saw. You guys will notice I used a lot more power tools in this build, which is fine. It was very fun. I haven't used them that much in a while, and they were very, very helpful. Then cutting to final length. This is a cross-cutting sled for the table saw. It's a useful jig. And I'm just doing a little bit of detail work, okay? Nothing fancy, but I wanted to get down the edges. Look at this, look at this. Ooh, fun. Nice. It's curling up. Yeah, and then stain. We're staining it. Same stain as the last, as the frame. And it brought out like this kind of gross green color from within the grain. I'm not sure why that is. If you know why that is, tell me, please. I think maybe it's because it was like, maybe wet or something. Like wet wood is usually green when it gets freshly chopped. I don't know. Anyway, the last thing to do is to attach the seat to the frame, and you use that, or you do that using these little, what do you call them? I don't have the word for them. Anyway, so here I'm cutting out the slot. Those little pin things are gonna be what are they called? They're gonna be screwed into the bottom of the seat, and then they're going to poke into the little opening in the frame that I made. The tab, that's the word. But this was the other frustrating part. It just didn't screw in very well. I thought I was gonna do 4, I ended up only doing 2 because I didn't have enough space to like drill a hole on the other sides. Because I didn't plan ahead. So it's a little wobbly in the end, but ta-da! Wow, look at it came out so much more beautiful than I thought it would. And I learned so much, and I'm really happy, excited for the next projects that are kind of on this scale. So thanks for watching, YouTube.